health and safety.
Hi there, my name is Claire and I'm an MPhil in medieval archaeology. And I just wanted to start off today with a couple of excerpts from some texts that I want you to just hold in the back of your mind. So the first is from Eagle's Saga, which is a Norse saga. Ravens flocked to the reddened sword, spears plucked lives and gory shafts sped. The scourge of the Scots fed the wolves that trolls ride. And the second is an excerpt from the Gospel of Matthew. Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves. It's been argued that the Anglo-Saxon animal art of the 5th and 6th centuries in England was fundamentally incompatible with the Christian iconography that was introduced upon the conversion of Britain to Christianity in the 7th and 8th centuries. Accordingly, this precipitated the decline of the Germanic animal style in the 7th and 8th centuries. However, animals and humans have shared an indivisible existence for millennia, and their relationship has taken many forms at different times and places. People have engaged with animals on both a physical and a cognitive level, interacting with them through everyday agricultural activities, as well as encountering them in stories, art, and ritual practices. Through these relations, animals have contributed to the development of past human identities and cosmologies. It's not surprising then that the animal form is a lasting element in the Anglo-Saxon artistic tradition in England, from the migration period to the conversion and beyond. However, as we shall see, representations of animals varied stylistically and contextually through the Middle Ages. And I ask, do these differences actually point to a fundamental shift in the manner in which people understand their relationship with animals and the world? Or do these similarities of content and style speak to an artistic tradition which embodies the enduring values and symbols of societies confronting immeasurable political, economic and social change? So, to explore this further, I'm going to give you some background to the location and the period of this research, look at some artistic styles that occur during this period. That's how it works. And then I'll consider some of the common elements that they depict, and really probe this question: is there actually an incompatibility of the two different cosmologies? And then I'll come to some conclusions. So, most of you will know that Britain was conquered by Rome during the final years of the Roman Empire. However, the collapse of the empire necessitated the withdrawal of Roman forces and settlers from Britain around 410 AD. The power vacuum left by the Romans saw a period of intense migration in the region, known as the migration period from 400 to 700. During this time, most of England was colonised by Anglo-Saxons, which is a group of people consisting of the Saxons, oh, I have a pointer. The Saxons, the Angles, and the Jutes, which is current-day northern Germany and Denmark. And they colonised most of the east of Britain, leaving the native British tribes to the west and leaving the Picts to themselves up in Scotland. However, continued strong political and Christian influences from Rome and the powerful kingdom of Francia saw the incursion of Christianity into Britain during the 7th century, around about 600 AD, and slowly it spread the length and breadth of the isle. So now that we have context for the Germanic animal art, I'll now consider the different artistic styles of the period. Specifically, two early Germanic styles have been recognised in the 5th century, following the withdrawal of the Romans from Britain. The earliest is the Saxon relief style. Developed in northern Germany during the early 5th century, it relies heavily on Roman techniques and motifs. This style is characterised by a combination of geometric and rounded animal motifs, borrowing from the hybrid animals present on contemporary examples of Roman military metalwork. The point brooch style is markedly different in design and content from its earlier Anglo-Saxon relief style, although both styles overlap somewhat chronologically. Traditionally, it's been distinguished by geometric designs of the Roman tradition, coupled with low relief, flat patterned designs incorporating semi-naturalistic arrangements of human masks and animals in a processional arrangement. The pattern and uniformity and low relief engraving of the creatures in this style suggest that the animals are only significant in their collectivity and don't have any real value as individual creatures. Conversely, the easily identifiable naturalistic Saxon relief creatures have quite a narrative quality. And we will see that there is an ongoing negotiation between this narrative and the patterned collective as we move through time. So as the Saxon relief and point brooch styles receded, a new Anglo-Saxon animal ornamentation tradition arose during the 5th century and would dominate ornamental decoration up to the end of the 6th century. Termed Style 1, this artistic design is thought to most closely reflect the development of an Anglo-Saxon cultural identity. As with the previously discussed styles, the same combination of geometric designs with human masks and animals were employed, but their depiction greatly differs from what had gone before. A fascination seems to have arisen with strange creatures during this time, resulting in more highly stylized, prominent and outlandish beasts, originating from Germanic mythology. This includes birds of prey with large curved beaks and gaping jawed fish. You might be able to see bird heads here and here. Increasingly, more human elements can be found on Style 1 metalwork, and emphasis seems to be focused on chaotic, disarticulated body parts, and particularly hand gestures, which you can see in this drawing of an element of this. Style 1 definitely has a very strong narrative undercurrent, and the chaos may be expressive of a time of social anxiety due to fundamental cultural and cosmological shifts that were being negotiated at this time, particularly in reference to the first incursions of Christianity and the development of the kingship system in the 6th century. From the late 6th century, its descendant Animal Style 2 emerged in southern Scandinavia and made its way down through continental Europe and across to Britain. Although representations of animals remained pivotal to the new style, they were somewhat eclipsed by the tangled and twisting configurations into which the animals were placed. The principles of symmetry and interlacing were of the highest priority, and images of hybrid man-beasts and the use of geometric decoration was abandoned. Instead, depictions of rounded and speckled animals were surpassed by clearly articulated animal bodies that were ribbed, elongated, and sinuous. Often the creatures would be interlocking in pairs, forming complex processions, or turning back to bite their own tails. So we can see there's an eagle's head there, and then there's a snake head biting back on itself. You can see the same. Again, we can see this shift from narrative to patterned collectivity, and it may serve as a metaphor for all life, representing its interconnectedness and continuity. It's been argued that at the end of the 7th century, the Germanic representations of animals and humans ceased to be identifiable as Christianity and its new iconography took hold. Christianity was reintroduced to Britain by both Roman and Irish missionaries, so the new insular style that succeeded these events reflects this variety of stylistic influences. During the 7th and 8th centuries, depictions of animals and humans returned to their naturalistic origins. An abundance of other stylistic conventions, discussed previously, and including frames of interlacing and geometric patterning, appear in the insular ornamentation of manuscripts, metalwork, and stone sculpture of the late 7th century. However, there are many common elements in the pre-Christian and Christian animal ornamentation through this period. Artistic conventions include scroll work, interlacing, and even hybrid animal-humans have appeared in ornamentation throughout this period, regardless of the religious context in which it occurs. Norse epic poems and early Christian historical documents illuminate the cosmological background upon which these images are drawn, and it is clear that the major incompatibility rests between the two sets of iconography and their literal or metaphoric underpinnings. However, with this understanding of Christian doctrine, the animal form in art can be interpreted in a pre-Christian manner. This is due in part to an inherent dualism in the concept of animal, which makes them useful in ritual practices because they are concurrently both like and unlike humans and can represent identity and otherness at the switch of a moment. In animal style too, the use of slightly unsymmetrical patterns suggests that the craftsmen were using broken symmetry to express the abstract concept of what is and yet isn't, or perhaps something that's in between. The use of shapeshifter and hybrid iconography articulates very clearly this idea of transformation. The Christian iconography of the 7th and 8th centuries could be interpreted similarly if historical documents and illuminated manuscripts were not available. For example, the hybridized St. John here with the eagle's head could very easily be confused with the representation of Odin on the 6th century brachiate. And it might be a bit difficult to see, but this is actually an eagle's head on Odin's horse. In this representation of St. John, the eagle's head represents the height to which he soared in composing his gospel. However, eagle imagery can also allude to resurrection, transformation, and knowledge, much in the way that it was used also in the depiction of Odin here. Alternatively, let's consider the Ruthwell Cross in Dumfriesshire in Scotland. The image of Christ stands majestically on the heads of beasts. If these two creatures represent sheep, it may signify the divinity of Christ the shepherd over his human flock. However, on the very next panel of the same Celtic cross, birds and other creatures take shelter in and are nourished by the true vine of Christ. Here it is meant to represent Christian souls residing in the protection of Christ, which is the vine of all life. However, without an understanding of Christian doctrine, as most Anglo-Saxon people probably lacked, particularly not being able to read and also not understanding spoken Latin, this motif is very similar in the interlacing and depictions of animals within vines in Animal Styles 1 and 2. And this is the Chessendale image from Animal Style 1. And we can see very much the same sort of motif. The variety of ways humans and animals have been depicted in ornamentation from the migration period through to the conversion period makes ascertaining if there really are differences between pre-Christian and Christian iconographies very difficult. And it's this, partially because animals and humans have shared an entangled history through which their relationships have taken many different forms. Archaeologists have often highlighted the differences inherent in animal ornamentation over the similarities that they depict, perhaps at the cost of research. However, what is crucial to seeing these differences is an understanding of Christian doctrine. I suggest that without these texts, the Germanic animal art of this period shows many similarities with Christian iconography, and it is precisely the use of animal forms to convey a new Christian message, which may actually have ensured the survival of pre-Christian cosmologies, as they can easily be read in their traditional context, as we've seen. So perhaps the Germanic artistic tradition lived on, and perhaps it lived on as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Thank you.